Time to turn our attention back to the morning papers. Here with me to review them today are the journalist Vidisha Mamata and the broadcaster Pete Price. So welcome back to both of you. And there you go, Pete. I knew you'd have a different shirt on this hour. Looks very nice, that one too. So let's get stuck in. Vidisha, we're turning inside the papers this hour, aren't we? And you've picked out an article in The Times reflecting on what happened yesterday. There was a big meeting of defence secretaries of the allies of Ukraine, and no agreement was made on whether or not Germany would send tanks to Ukraine, something that they've called for. So how does The Times reflect on this?
So you may have seen pictures in the press of protesters, anti-war protesters, holding up big signs with leopards on them. This refers to the German Leopard 2 tanks, and this is what the disagreement is about. Olaf Scholz, the German Chancellor, is saying that there needs to be unilateral, multilateral consensus agreement on whether or not Germany sends these lighter, more manageable Leopard 2 tanks to Ukraine. But not just that. Germany has to approve all the other countries that also have the same tanks and make sure they're all running on the same system. Now, Germany and the US are allies, and they've spoken very supportively of each other. And the question is, do they send the Leopard 2 tanks, which are German, or the heavier, slightly harder to manage Abrams tanks, which are American? And Olaf Scholz is being very careful and saying, look, it looks as though Germany is the one person on one side, and everyone else is saying, yes, let's send these tanks to Ukraine to help defeat Putin. That is not the case. This has to be a consensus decision. Meanwhile, commentators on the American side, I'm not going to quote them because one of them swore, but he said, I'm tired of this bleep. America should be sending American tanks. The Germans should be sending German tanks, because what matters now is that Putin does not advance any further into Europe. He doesn't win in Ukraine. The Ukrainians can claw back some of their territory. I think everyone involved in this situation is trying to make it clear that we should not be getting into rhetoric about this being World War III, even though, frankly, it looks very much like it. They are reducing this Leopard 2 tank issue to simply a technical issue about group agreement and whether these tanks are viable or not. However, what is completely undeniable is that we are into year 2, nearly, of the invasion. And if we're not careful, then the front is going to advance westwards further into Europe.
Yeah, very sobering stuff, and clearly they want to put on a united front as well, don't they, the Allies? But clearly some tensions behind the scenes. Pete, take us to The Guardian, will you? Because this is an article reflecting on the Church of England issuing an apology, haven't they? And what else have they said about their attitude towards gay marriage?
Yeah, they're split. It's an interesting article because it mentions different leaders of the church, but they're split over the blessing for same-sex marriages, and they don't know whether it's right or wrong still, although historically it's been changed, so I don't understand what the problem is. First of all, they should concentrate more on getting new congregations because they're struggling in churches. They need people in the churches. Secondly, over this, and by the way, they've apologized to the LGBTQ plus for the pain the church has caused. Well, I was in the church choir for years. I lost my religion after that. I fought my sexuality when it was a criminal offense to be a gay man. So sitting in a church, I struggled beyond any recognition of anybody knowing what I went through. But for a priest or an archbishop, a human being, to stop people going to their church to worship in their way and to have a blessing and be and a marriage between same-sex couples, we get one chance at this life, and they are not God. They are not God. They are human beings in the church. They have no right to judge. They should look at themselves and before they judge anybody else. And they should give people the freedom, if so be it, that they want in the eyes of their God to be recognized. Is that asking too much?
Yeah, well, and your thoughts are echoed by some in the church, as you say. The Archbishop of York, quoted here, is saying that he would personally offer blessings to same-sex couples. Definitely some support in the church, but as you say, some mixed feelings there. Let's move on, shall we, to the front of the Financial Times next, Bidisha. Their main story concerns Google and jobs. So what are they saying?
Well, most of the other headlines are about the cost of living crisis, so I'm not sure how many tears we're going to shed for the top 7 tech companies axing tens of thousands of extremely highly paid, very qualified tech workers everywhere, from Alphabet that owns Google to Meta, who owns Facebook, and any other huge tech company you could possibly imagine. They are axing jobs, and in fact, in the Daily Mail today, there's an interesting headline calling it the tech wreck. The takeaway from all of this is not that we're going to cry for people who, even as the article admits, are very easily finding jobs elsewhere in the tech sector. It's about how we're living now post-pandemic. So all of the tech companies had a massive boom because during those 2-3 years of lockdown and pandemic, our own as consumers tech usage shot up absolutely massively. We all signed up to the streaming services. We were all watching YouTube recipes for comfort food in these dark times, and now that's over. Plus there's a huge economic demand, a cost of living crisis. All of these tech companies who got very comfortable, made a lot of money, are suddenly finding that their own costs are rising, advertising revenue sales are down, and demand is down. So this era in which everyone in the world would be plugged into the matrix, seamlessly absorbing infotainment until the end of time, is no longer happening, because finally, and I think this is a good thing, we're all venturing back out again and trying to live IRL, in the real world, as young people call it.
That's what it stands for. I did wonder. Let's move on, shall we, to the Mirror. Well, this is really interesting. It's on my little notes here. It says it's about ageism in TV. So is it one person in particular suggesting that they're a victim of ageism? What's this all about, Pete?
Louise Jameson from Emmerdale, who's 71, is saying that ageism appears to be becoming even more prevalent within television and also in films, which is incredibly sad. I mean, she's great. Apparently she walked on one set and somebody went, "Oh, you've got white hair." Well, look at me. I mean, it's my birthday this week. I'm 77 this week, so do I get put out to pasture? I mean, have I enough? And when we think of Judi Dench and Jane Fonda and Julie Andrews and Joan Collins, how can we possibly have ageism? These are the pillars. These teach younger actors what the profession is all about. We shouldn't have any ageism. A couple of my friends, I won't mention the names, who are fighting, and they're in the 50s, fighting in the television industry. It's wrong. And in radio, ageism has gone out the window. Let's get rid of anybody with any talent or any age, and let's get the young kids in, because that's what we want. Rubbish.
It's difficult, isn't it, Pete? Because you need to appeal to the whole audience, old and young, don't you, I guess, very briefly?
Well, yeah, so mix it up. Mix it up, completely and utterly mix it up. I mean, you know, with the greatest respect, newsreaders are getting moved on because we want young and glamorous with those wonderful rubber lips.
We're out of time, and it's not just because you're talking about older newsreaders and I'm being sensitive, but we really are out of time. Happy birthday for this week. I'll see you in the next hour. Thanks both.